I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here, get started. Welcome everyone. We're so glad you could join us this afternoon. I'm Curation, and I'm the Data Project Manager for openICPSR here at the Inter-University Consortium for Political and Social Research, aka ICPSR.
And I'm Jared Lyle. I'm an archivist at ICPSR and works with Curation.
So what are our learning objectives for today? We, over the next 30 minutes, are going to tell you more about ICPSR and what makes our data curation process unique, how openICPSR fits into this picture, and how it provides a unique additional service for our community, including openICPSR for repositories, a fully hosted branded repository solution geared towards journal and small projects. And then we'll open up the floor for some questions from the audience.
All right, so ICPSR has been around for close to 60 years now. We're a consortium of lots and lots of organizations around the world. And our data span all of the social and behavioral sciences. ICPSR really stands for data. We've hosted data, stewarded data for decades, and that now includes close to 10,000 plus studies. That's over 250,000 data files. We have many restricted studies that are restricted largely to protect confidentiality. And the thematic collections span anything from addiction and HIV to criminal justice, to demography, to aging. So lots and lots of thematic collections. And ICPSR is known for curated data. And by curation, we mean that data are reviewed, cleaned, and enhanced so that they're complete and self-explanatory. I like to think of data curation as when you look at these cans of soup. So uncurated data are a lot like the empty can with no label, where if you were to pick this up from a shelf, you wouldn't know what's in there, or you wouldn't know much of what's in there. It might be tomato soup, it might be chicken noodle soup, it might be something else. When you open up the can, it might be a surprise. And you're not quite sure what you're getting with it. With curation, you're getting more of the middle and the right side. So some collections, when they're curated, they get a title and you know who distributes it. So here you know it's a Campbell's soup, and you know it's specifically chicken noodle soup. But real thorough curation where someone's going through and reviewing the data and adding labels, making sure it's complete and self-explanatory is what you see on the right, where you have the nutritional facts, you have instructions on how to make the soup, you have a barcode and the like. That's the same with data, where it's been reviewed, described, cleaned, and distributed so that the end user is able to find it, access it, and reuse it successfully. So ICPSR, of course, for our curated data and the data that come in, they're reviewed, they're cleaned, they're described well. We also have these added value services in addition to that regular curation. So we do a disclosure review of collections to make sure that the identifiable information is taken care of in a way so that we can respect respondents' confidentiality and privacy. When we curate collections, we distribute them and prepare them in multiple formats, knowing that our users might make use of different statistical packages for reuse. We create long-term preservation formats and take care of preservation issues so that the data are accessible into the future. And then we have other services like a social science variables database, where users can search for our collections, not just at the study level, but they can search and review our collections variable by variable, so at a really fine granular level. And then another great service is our bibliography of data-related literature. this ties or links related publications to our collections. So if someone's written about our data that's housed at ICPSR, and as well as describe the methods they've used when analyzing the data, that's all linked back to the original data source. So you see not just who's using it, but how they're using it. And it's really valuable added valued services that are tied to our curated collections. So when something's curated and released or distributed to the public, this is what a typical collection would look like. You have a nice study homepage. You have a tab for the data, the variables, the publications. You can export the metadata. There's usage statistics. It's a really great package. And for our 60 years, we've been very happy to release many of these curated collections, and our users seem to be happy as well with the curation that we do. But curation is not always the best fit for everything. So not everything may need to be curated. Many replication studies that are tied to publications may not need to be curated or can't be curated. Or if the original producer does a thorough job and does the curation her himself, then that can be probably distributed as is. Also, curation can take time because there's a human effort there. And so if something needs to be distributed immediately, then curation, at least initial curation, might not always make the best fit. So with that in mind, ICPSR several years ago put out a new product called openICPSR. And with openICPSR, instead of the nice curation that ICPSR provides, we allow for self-publication. And so this is the homepage of openICPSR. And by self-publication, we mean data are published as is. It's immediately available, but it's not curated by our wonderful curation staff who are trained and go through collections. Data are not reviewed for restricted data. They're not enhanced by us. They're published immediately by whomever deposits it. But they do get the similar perks as our curated data. So there's the same descriptive fields. They're listed in our data catalog. You can relate publications and their usage statistics, but it's very much driven by the depositor. There is unique functionality. So again, while you don't get those nice curation benefits by ICPSR staff, there's some unique functionality in openICPSR that's different from our curated products. Those include file level information like descriptive metadata fields, file level citations. So what this means is that if you go into a particular file that's part of the project or package, you can see file level metadata and you can request a file level citation for that object. And the data are accessible at that file level, granular level. Also, another unique functionality is that when you go to publish the collection, there are multiple licenses, including Creative Commons licenses that you can select when distributing the data. And so all of these things are a little different than our curated collection, and we'll show you those later on when we walk through the functionality of openICPSR. So this is an openICPSR project that's been published. You can see it's somewhat similar in appearance as the curated collection. So you can see the data, you can see the metadata or the descriptive elements, the usage metrics, but it's different. It's different than the curated collections. So just quickly to summarize, I wanted just to review ICPSR is about data curation. We put a lot of effort into the curation. We have wonderful staff who take collections that are submitted to ICPSR and curate them. Those go through a curation queue. They're reviewed for disclosure risk, and there's this wonderful enhanced functionality that's provided. We also provide an option for openICPSR. That means that the data are published as is. immediately. That works really well for certain types of data, especially replication data sets. It also means that the added curation that ICPSR provides is not applied to those open ICPSR collections, including disclosure review. But there's unique functionality that open ICPSR provides. And so next, Karani is going to walk through just what publishing in open ICPSR looks like and that functionality that I've started to explain. So Karani.
Thanks, Jared. So you're probably wondering what it's like actually depositing data with openICPSR, and we're going to walk through a little demonstration of that. So there are two ways to begin your deposit. First, you can just visit icpsr.umich.edu, and you would click on the Share Data tab at the top, and you'll be prompted to answer a few questions, and you'll see this page here, and you'll click on Deposit to openICPSR, which would take you directly to our website. The second way is to just go directly to openicpsr.org and click on the Share Data tab at the top, and you'll be prompted to log in or create a free mydata account, which you can do through Google, LinkedIn, or OrcID. Once you're there, you will create a new project, and the screen will pop up. You'll want to enter in a project title and then select the repository you'll be depositing to. After doing so, you'll be taken to the project workspace, and that's what this looks like. Here, you can upload files and import from zip. There, you'll upload any relevant data and documents. Under project description, scope of project, and methodology is where you would enter in project metadata. You'll also notice on the right side some tools we want to highlight. There's public project. Share project allows you to share the project with your colleagues or someone on your research team. Change owner allows you to hand over ownership of the project. View log will give you a summary of all the edits made to your project. And then report problem allows you to submit an issue to ICPSR. Below that, you'll see storage status, and this is where you'll know how much space you've used for your deposit. By clicking upload files, this box will pop up, and here's where you can drag files or just add them directly from your computer. And the import from zip feature will allow you to upload and extract content of a zip file, and a maximum of 1,000 files may be abstracted. After you've uploaded your files, the project workspace might look like this, and you can click on the specific file to see additional actions. So from left to right here, you'll see view file, which is only available for certain file types, about file, download file, move file, rename file, and also delete file. These are those additional actions. In the project description box, we require that you enter in information about the PI or PIs, and also a summary of your project. And when you click on add value next to the pencil investigator, this is the box that would pop up. In the scope of project box, you should add subject terms, geographic coverage, time periods, collection dates, or any other relevant collection notes you think a secondary user might need to know. And in the methodology box, you can provide details about the study's response rate, sampling strategy, data source, collection mode, scale and weight, units of observation, and geographic unit. And that's just what this would look like here. Lastly, you can also add citations for publications related to your project. You can do that either by importing via DOI or by manually entering the citation. And this is what you'd see if you chose to manually enter in, for example, a journal article. This is the box that would pop up for that. This is a project communication log, and here is where you communicate with those you share the project with, or in the case of an open ICPSR repository, with repository administrators who may have suggested edits or questions for you. And any communications placed here are directly emailed via an email notification to ICPR staff or a repository administrator. To share a project, you would click on Share Project on the right side of the project workspace, and this box would appear. And you would type in whoever you're sharing this project with, their email address. And you can also select what kind of privileges they may have. You can allow them to just read the content. You can allow them to delete content. And after you've entered in their email address, their email will populate at the bottom of this pop-up screen. This is an example of what the log history would look like. So you would be able to see what types of edits and actions were done on the specific project. So you've come to where you've uploaded your files, all your documentation, and your metadata are amazing. They're thorough. And the next step would be for you to publish your project. And you would do that by clicking the Publish Project button. You'll then be taken to this page where you can review your submission. You also have the opportunity to go back and make any revisions before you publish. And once you're ready, you would click on Proceed to Publish. As a final step, you would be taken to this Terms and Conditions page where you would answer questions about disclosure risks, whether you want the data to be public or restricted, if you'd like to delay the dissemination of your data. So we allow for up to 3 years delayed dissemination, and which licenses license you'd like to apply to your data. And finally, that you agree to the deposit agreement. And once you're done with that, you would click Publish Data. And what you've all been waiting for, to see what a published project would look like. So this is the result, and this would be the first page. And if you would scroll down, the second page. So we want to highlight a few things here. Let me go back one slide. Here you see the Download This Project button and the usage metrics that Jared and I have mentioned before, and also the different published versions. This is what the citation would look like. Again, here's that download, just a zoomed in version. Download this project and the usage metrics so you can see how many people have viewed or downloaded your project and the different versions. Jared mentioned earlier the file level citation. So if a user would like to generate a file citation, they can do that here by clicking on Generate Citation for this file. They can also preview the file, or they can just download a specific file. And there's also folder and file level usage metrics they can see as well. In order to download the project, a user would click on Download This Project button, and they'd be taken to this Terms of Use page where they would agree, they have to agree to before downloading your data. We want to highlight that users are not to exploit the data sets to investigate specific research subjects. And in the case that the identity of a research subject is discovered, the user would need to notify ICPSR. Jared?
Thanks, Karani. Yeah, so openICPSR provides some really unique functionality. We also provide openICPSR for repositories. So this is especially good for journals or small research organizations that are looking for a fully hosted research data sharing service. We've already partnered with selective organizations or journals, including the American Economic Association. So openICPSR repositories let organizations showcase all of their data in one place. It's the same functionality and features as openICPSR, including that customizable metadata and inclusion in our ICPSR catalog. But it's branded with your logo, colors, and a unique URL. You can then administer your data repository through a management workspace. And there's some unique customized aspects to openICPSR for repositories that we'll show next. We're including here the contact information if people are interested in setting up openICPSR for repositories instance.
So we mentioned that we have some customizations for openICPSR repositories. So specifically for AEA, they have a customized workflow where they're able to have special features beyond what we just demonstrated. And here on this, in the screenshot, you'll see that they have required fields of including JL classification. Also, depositors working with AEA are able to submit to AEA and await any administrator decisions. So then the AEA repository administrators are able to review the project prior to them being published on our site. So while in the project workspace for AEA, as you see here, the administrator would be able to publish the project, request revisions, or reject the project. A final customization we wanted to highlight were the status changes. So here they have a status changes in the communication log, which also triggers email notifications to the appropriate repository administrators or ICPSR staff.
All right, so that's the extent of our presentation. We are happy that so many of you joined us today. Like we said at the outset, we wanted to take this time to just talk about openICPSR in the context of our ICPSR curated collections, talk about how they're different, how there's some unique functionality, what data are best suited where. And so we discussed how ICPSR collections, those are curated, they go through a curation queue. There's some disclosure review and a lot of enhanced functionality that's makes them unique and wonderful. For certain collections, those are good for openICPSR, including replication data sets often tied to journal publications. And those data can go into openICPSR. They're published as is immediately. There's no disclosure review or no curation done by ICPSR. And there is some unique functionality on openICPSR. And finally, we showed openICPSR for repositories. Those are customized workspaces and repositories fully hosted by ICPSR for professional organizations, journals, and small organizations looking for a single place to host their data. They have some functionality that can be customized. Feel free if you have an organization that's interested in this to contact ICPSR for further information. With that, we are going to turn it over to you for questions. We're happy to take them now. We're also happy to respond after the webinar. So thanks again. All right. Anna, did you want us just to read through these questions ourselves, or did you want to pose them to us?
Yeah, that's up to you. It is completely your decision. You should be able to see that Q&A on the bottom of your screen as well, but if you can't, just let me know.
Jared, I'll start to read them out for us. So the first question we have is, what kind of files can be deposited into openICPSR?
Yeah, that's a good question. So in any file that you have associated with your data set will be able to be published in openICPSR. There are file size limitations and number of files that can be added. Currently, we're looking at a limit of 30 gigabytes and up to 1,000 files per project. Those limitations are due to our system capabilities. But as far as file types, our system will accept, I think, pretty much any file type.
So the next question is, may I delay the release of my data deposit so it's not immediately available? And the answer to that is yes. We allow for delayed dissemination for up to 3 years, and this is for openICPSR and ICPSR. We also have another question here. Can I update my files and metadata after publishing?
Yeah, certainly. So that's a cool thing about openICPSR is that if you need to update your metadata or your data, you can go in and publish a new version. Each project is versioned. Each version gets a unique identifier or DOI and unique citation. The same goes for files. You can provide a unique citation to specific files and then cite those specific files and not just the overall project. So yes, you can update your files and metadata. We have some collections that have been updated and republished with new versions. I think one is up to version 76. You want me to read the next one? I see the question now. Okay. Is there a size limit to the data that can be uploaded? I think we just covered that where we talked about 30 gigabytes per project. And that's actually increasing soon to 30 gigabytes. Previously, it was 2 gigabytes. And then the number of files will be limited. We recommend to limit that to 1,000 files. And then Karani, here's one for you that I see. Are all 3 types of services free?
Oh, that's a great question. So to deposit to openICPSR, yes, that's completely free. To deposit to ICPSR in our general archive, we have a free option, and we also, which means that your data will be accessible to our nearly 800 member institutions worldwide. And we also have a paid option where you can pay to have your data available beyond our membership. And if you'd like to know more about that, you can email me directly. We can give quotes for the paid option in the general archive.
Yeah, and then for openICPSR repositories, there's a fee to that. That's posted on the site. And it's dependent on the number of collections that you have, as well as how much you desire to customize the service.
We have another one here, Jared. Do you need a mydata account to access openICPSR data? So to download the data, you'll need to create a mydata account. It's free for anyone to create a mydata account.
So another question about the cost associated with these services. Hopefully we just addressed that. Do you need a mydata account? Okay, I'm sorry, I saw that. Does it have to be social science data? So according to our collection policy, yes, it should be related to the social behavioral sciences to post into openICPSR as well as ICPSR. Now there's a pretty wide variety of data and studies that can be considered social or behavioral. But yeah, we try to keep our collections focused on our collection development policy.
I'd like to drop a plug here about our COVID-19 data repository, which is the most recently added openICPSR repository. And there you can share data examining the pandemic. You'll be able to see that through visiting openICPSR website. Is there any more questions?
Yeah, so it looks like another person has asked, what qualifications are required in order to deposit with openICPSR? So anyone can go in and deposit to openICPSR as well as to ICPSR. I believe you just need to create a mydata account, which is an ICPSR authentication, or what would you call mydata? It's like a user account is what I was looking for. And then once you create that, you go in and start your deposit and then submit it. When you submit it, you'll be asked to agree to terms, and including that you have the right to publish those data. So while anyone can go in and start a deposit, we ask them to verify that they have permission to deposit those data on behalf either of the original investigator or on an organization. And so then once they agree to those terms and then select a license, and also some other questions that Karani already showed, asking about disclosure risk and whether they want to delay dissemination. Then the data are published for openICPSR. For curated collections, they go to one of our topical archives, to their curation staff, and then they're curated and eventually published. What do you recommend when uploading replication data? Are there standards to follow? So for some journals, they have standards in place, and we encourage people to follow those. I think the rule of thumb is that you'd want to make sure that your package is complete and self-explanatory, so that anyone else who comes along will be able to redo the work that was necessary to originally publish or create your data. But for instance, with our American Economic Association journals, with their openICPSR repository, they have pretty detailed instructions on the standards and recommendations for publishing into openICPSR. We also have a guide to data social science archiving that's on the ICPSR website. We can find that and put that into the chat box. That's a good guide for referencing when preparing your data for dissemination through an archive, either at ICPSR or elsewhere. So I see a few more. One is, how can I get to openICPSR?
You would visit openICPSR.org. We can share that link with you too via the chat. Thanks, Jared.
Yeah, and I think we just covered the what is a mydata account. That's a great question. It's just a user account that you create on ICPSR. Then the last question that I see is, does this self-deposit repository meet the requirements of NSF NIH data management plans? Did you want to take that, Karani, or would you like me?
Would you mind taking that one, Jared?
Sure. Yes. It would. So the data get a citable URL, a persistent identifier. The data now are findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. FAIR is sometimes what that's called. But I should also say that data that are put into ICPSR's main catalog or main system that are curated are also meet the requirements for NSF for many of the NIH data management plans. So both are good options. I think you just need to consider what's best for you and your data, but definitely don't take the ICPSR curation options off the table. Those are wonderful. Like I said at the beginning, those data are curated by trained ICPSR staff and also get some enhanced services.
Well, I think those are all the questions we had. We again thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. We shared our email addresses in the PowerPoint presentation, and I believe the slides will be shared with you after the presentation. And also, since this webinar is recorded, you could also revisit it at any time in the ICPSR's YouTube channel.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks everyone.